Okay, this is going to be fun. The Jets and the Flames going head-to-head in the playoffs. Lots of Canadian content. For that, we bring in Flames reporter Ryan Leslie, Jets reporter Sean Reynolds. Boys, let's have some fun. Ryan, first question's for you. I know the Jets are going to start and go in the playoffs. Who do the Flames go with between the pipes?
That's a great question, Kenny. And isn't it interesting when we look back, almost every year, a goalie makes a name for himself in the playoffs. Everybody can point to all kinds of examples. I think maybe the experience, maybe you look at a guy like Cam Talbot for the Flames, but I wonder if it's David Rittich who gets a chance because he is the goalie that could likely and most likely will be around in the future. I wonder if you go to him, maybe they learned something from the Mike Smith thing where you don't want to really ruffle any feathers, but certainly with the guy who's going to be here and now and in the future, I wonder if it's David Rittich to start, but you have that quick hook if need be with a guy like Cam Talbot. They have complete faith in both goaltenders, but I think you've got to please the guy that has played the bulk of the games, who has been a sense of your future between the pipes. And I really think that you look at David Rittich. I understand the case for those watching and saying, no, this is a Cam Talbot start, and then maybe you go to Rittich. But I think it's Rittich to start with a quick hook, if need be, to go to a guy who I think you also feel real comfortable with in Cam Talbot.
So, Sean, if the question mark in Calgary is who they go with in goal, is the question mark in Winnipeg still about the blue line? If they prove enough to you throughout the regular season that this can be a team that will have a blue line that can compete in the playoffs?
Well, I don't think it's so much about that blue line. I think that's an issue. I think if you look at the way it's constructed, doesn't look like a championship level defense. It's clearly the weakness that this team has. But you mentioned right off the top, if we're talking about goaltending, that's how the Jets have got past this the entire season. Connor Hellebuck has been absolutely phenomenal this year. And the one thing, when you watched him play, it always kind of blew me away how when the Jets really, really needed a win, he would just come out and steal the game time and time again. He's able to raise his level of play when the team needs it most. And I just think that spells doom for the Calgary Flames, especially in a 5-game series. If you're looking at a goaltender who has the capability to steal 2, possibly even 3 games in a series like this, the Jets have the guy who can do that. Now, the Jets defense, yes, there's holes on that defense. We all know the analytics behind this team. They give up way too many high danger scoring chances. That's always going to be an issue in this playoff run. It's probably going to be what catches up with them. But Connor Hellebuck is a big, fat, giant eraser that erases a lot of mistakes for this team.
Ryan, chime in. You don't need me to tee you up here. I see you shaking your head a little.
Well, no, I'm actually in agreement. I think Hellebuck can be that type of goaltender who can kind of jump in there and steal some games and erase some mistakes for sure. I look at the Flames and I think, okay, and the Jets, this is a premier matchup for me. Like, I know out in Alberta, everybody wants that first round Battle of Alberta. Does this format kind of mess with that? Yes. But if you look at the fact that it's an all-Canadian matchup, evenly matched in terms of points, you can look at the head-to-heads. I think both teams feel comfortable playing against one another. I would be, as a hockey fan, salivating at this matchup because I don't think it's clear-cut, but I think for both teams, this is a really tough test that I think they would probably look at other teams and go, I wish I'd start with somebody else. But I think there's a lot of factors here, Kenny, and I just think that this is one where the Jets are really big up front. They're really skilled. They've got some sniper power up there, but Calgary's got some intangibles and some teams some players that really have something to prove. They've got a couple of key free agents on that back end, and TJ Brody and Travis Hamonic. This is important for them right now, and they're looking to play for another contract either in Calgary or somewhere else. This is also a factor of, look at the year that the Flames have had. All right, this started out with a TJ Brody collapse on the ice. This went into some players who were having underachieving seasons, followed by a coaching change with the Bill Peters situation. The spotlight, the scrutiny, the ebbs and flows, and the roller coaster ride of emotion. This almost seems fitting for the Flames. I don't think when they do return that they're going to be fazed by the format or the opponent.
I do think it's an interesting point he raises about the ups and downs, because we saw that from the Winnipeg Jets as well. They've had so many man games lost to injury, second only to the Columbus Blue Jackets. So what we've seen from this team is down the stretch when they were really picking things up. They finished the season before it goes on hiatus with 4-game winning streak. people keep asking me why. Well, one of the reasons why is they finally got healthy. We're finally seeing what this team is and what they're capable of. Add to that the guys that they picked up at the trade deadline, and we're seeing exactly what the Winnipeg Jets could be right now. And they were really at the top of their game. And they were able to achieve that similar level in November when they were one of the best teams in the league. So the one thing that I think really stands out about this series, when Ryan brings that up, is time and time again, when I've watched the Calgary Flames and when I've talked to people around the Calgary Flames, what I've heard over and over again is they just can't quite seem to get there. They can't quite seem to put it all together and get it figured out. Well, the Jets are a team that twice this year basically got to max capacity to show exactly what they were capable of. So they know what that feels like. That team knows what it's like to get everything together, to have everybody pulling on the rope and everyone going in the same direction. And I think after you have a hiatus like this, that's very beneficial to have that in the memory bank to be able to get to that, because I don't know that the Calgary Flames ever got there. So if they do get to that point, they're going to have to do it very quick right out of the gate.
Stop it. Listen, they came in with a new coach who was familiar to this incomplete program, came in, rattled off 8 wins. He's one of the winningest coaches since in that time that he has become head coach. I appreciate, Sean, that you've got the pom-poms going, but it's still one season, and it still needs to be decided. And you can throw the rule book, momentum, everything else out the window. It's about who's going to come back fit, who's going to come back ready to go, who's going to gel quickly. And I think given some of the other things that certainly the Jets have faced and endured, and I think that the Flames, I think it's really looking like a saw for me anyhow. And I really think the intangibles for any team are what's going to settle this. But I do appreciate the homerism.
Well, that is exactly the point you talked about, though, is who's going to come back out of this. And I think my point stands. The Jets have been a team who know what it's like to get to that point. I don't know that the Calgary Flames are that team that know what it's like to be running on full capacity. I mean, I've talked with Cassie Campbell. I've talked with a lot of people involved around the team. I mean, I put it to you, did the Calgary Flames at any point this season get to what the Calgary Flames should have been operating at max capacity?
I would say no. And I think it's probably the most valid point out of any of the stuff we're spewing here, because I think they have not reached their full potential. And that's why I wonder if now's the time.
But the St. Louis Blues won last year playing big boy hockey. And I think the one thing we don't talk about enough about every year going into the playoffs is what is the hockey going to look like. Last year, we talked about it immensely. Wow, it's rugby on ice again. The refs threw the whistles out the window. They're not calling it like they call it in the regular season. If this series is called like the regular season, who has the advantage? But if the whistles go out the window, kind of like we saw in last year's playoffs, who's that going to benefit? And I'm figuring it's playoff hockey, so the whistles are going to go out the window a lot of times.
Well, I think if it's the Winnipeg Jets, the one thing that I see with the Winnipeg Jets is, you take a look and you see guys like Mark Scheifele, you see Blake Wheeler, you see Adam Lowry. They're a big team. And the one thing, though, I don't think they're like the Winnipeg Jets of 2015, who are just the biggest team in the league, and they leaned on teams and they wore them down. There's certain guys who play that heavy game, but the Jets prefer to play a wide open game. They're one of those teams that if you want to leave that kind of stuff to the side, they'll play and match speed with you all day. What they also do very well, though, is when you try and lean on them, they're able to handle that. And losing a guy like Dustin Byfuglien, that clearly changes things. But they held their own against the St. Louis Blues in the first round of the playoffs last year, had them on the ropes in Game 5, and could have gone into that sixth game of the series up 3-2 if they wouldn't have had that late collapse. This is a team that's able to play that kind of hockey. So I don't necessarily think that they're a team that falls victim to that, but they're also not the team that's going to try and impose that on you. And it's unfortunate because I think they're better off to play that manner of game. I think if you can get them into a little bit of a track meet, they can fall into that idea of we think we can outscore these guys. We think we are going to make the most out of our chances. But if I'm Calgary, I like that because then it gets into a competition of firepower. And if you could start getting some past Connor Hellebuyck, then I think the chinks in the armor really do start to show for the Winnipeg Jets.
I'm with you. I don't know over the last few years, Sean, as we've watched these two go head to head, as though the physicality has been the theme. There's been some big boys, some big bodies, some big boy hockey by definition, but I don't think it's been one in the trenches. I don't think it's been about leaning on guys when they go head to head anyhow. And I don't think Calgary over the last few years has been overly intimidated by maybe the fact that Winnipeg's been a bigger team. I think it does sort of suit Calgary's side, not to necessarily be a track meet, but because I don't know as though Calgary's one of the faster teams in the league. But if you can free up the space for a guy like Johnny Gaudreau, maybe then he'll have some success. Because if you look at him, and I know Sportsnet's been airing World Cup, I mean, Johnny Gaudreau with some ice and some space is downright dangerous. But when it comes to the playoffs, if you're going to have success in shutting those guys down, as we saw Colorado do to Calgary a year ago, you got to take away that time and space. You've got to play big boy hockey. You've got to lean on them. And I'm not so sure Calgary has an answer for that just yet. If Winnipeg does want to go heavy and maybe stay away from the back and forth, then I think Winnipeg has the advantage there. But if it does open up a little bit, I think Calgary feels real comfortable playing any style, but I think it benefits them to have that space and maybe not have that lean on you heavy hockey.
All right, on, boys. We're running long on time. Quickly, 10 seconds or less. Sean, you're first. How do the Jets win this series? Quickly, 10 seconds or less.
Connor Hellebuck, is that all I need? 1 second?
That's all you need. That's all you need.
If Connor Hellebuck comes out to play, they're going to be a very hard team to knock out. And as for up front, they've got the dangerous players up front. They just need a little bit of space. That's all it takes. So capitalize on the opportunities they do get. Great goaltending.
Ryan, how do the Flames win?
They need to have a goaltender. They need one of them to make a name for himself, and they need their stars to shine up front. They cannot be afraid to play playoff hockey. And as we know, it gets greasy and it gets tough this time of year, and they got to get their hands dirty.
Ryan Leslie, Sean Reynolds. Thanks, boys. This will be a fun series.